and welcome to my video about CMYK printing. My name is Doug Eberhardt and I'm making this video specifically for my screen printing class and their CMYK printing project. If you are not an Edinboro student taking my class and in the midst of the CMYK assignment, this video will not be that useful to you, but you can feel free to watch if you like. So I'm making this video for my screen printing class because at Edinboro we have a relatively small computer lab where we print our digital files for this assignment and for other assignments, and I often can only take about a quarter of my class into this lab to show them how to process their image for the CMYK printing. And I figured if I could make this video, I could just show it to all of them at the same time and save us all a lot of time. Save me from having to say what I'm about to say 4 times in one day. So let's begin with the CMYK project that I assign to you, the students. I allow you to use any kind of image that you'd like, as long as it's a photograph, a photo collage, a painting, or some kind of textural artwork with color. And you can really do a combination of any of those things and it will fulfill the guidelines for the assignment. I'm going to work with a photo today, and photographs and really textural, painterly works of art that I will allow you to use for this assignment they're ideal to me because if they've got a lot of texture, if they've got a lot of interesting use of color, they're really going to highlight what this process can do and the amount of detail that this process can hold on to. And I think it's really important for you as artists, printmakers, graphic designers to understand how this process of building color works exactly. So I'm going to take my photo and I'm going to drag it into Photoshop. And this is kind of a silly photo that I took a couple months ago at my friend's house of this plastic ghost. And the first thing I'm going to do is let's look at the image size. So the image size is not what I want. I want 300 resolution, and typically we don't want to go up in resolution because you can lose quality in your image. But as long as I don't go up in my width and my height, as long as I don't change those too much, changing this to 300 resolution should not be a problem. And the resolution really has to be 300 for the halftone building that we're going to do later on in this process. So definitely you have to do that. The next thing, let's check. Okay, so this is great. We are doing the CMYK screen printing process. Right now our file type is in RGB, which stands for red, green, and blue, and that is not going to work for our purposes. We need CMYK, which if I haven't, I don't believe I've mentioned it yet, but CMYK stands for cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. So let's choose that, and don't show me that again. And there we go, nothing really visually has changed, but now we're in the CMYK, we're looking at our colors with CMYK. So image size, I think I'm also gonna crop this down a little bit. And when you think about the size, right now mine's 10 by 13, do think about the paper that you're going to be printing on. Anytime you design an image for a print, definitely think about what's this gonna look like as a final printed product. Are these films going to fit on the paper that you have? And be economical about your paper. You know, you can, if scaling something down a tiny bit will allow you to get 4 prints out of a sheet of paper, well, you know, the image is what's most important for a successful piece of artwork, but there's no reason not to be economical as well. So I'm going to crop this down, get rid of a little bit of this pointless stuff around my ghost. That's really what matters the most to me. Okay, and there we go. So let's see, right now this is 8 by 11. this will work fine. Actually, I think I prefer just a slightly rounder number. So let's just do 8 by 11. And maybe my final print will be 9 by 12. I'll leave a little inch border on the, or a half-inch border on each side. Okay. Proceed. All right, there's our image. So let's take the next step. Let's separate this into a bunch of layers that are going to be our CMYK layers. So over here, if you're a user of Photoshop, you might be familiar with the layers. They drop down, you can add them, whatnot. But I don't know if you've ever clicked here and taken a look at the channels. So these channels give us a little window into what visual information we have when it comes to our C, M, Y, and K. So when you click on each of these, it'll give you a little preview of where the cyan, for example, is being used in this image, or the magenta, or the yellow, or the black. But okay, let's separate these. So I'm just going to right click and click duplicate. And I'm going to duplicate each one of these. I'm going to duplicate each one as a new document. And now here's our cyan, and it's just at the top here. And let's do this also with our magenta. New. And now we've got our magenta. And let's do it with our yellow. New. And then finally, we will do it with our black. All right, we've got our black, yellow, magenta, cyan. Now next, and we don't even need this one anymore. We can just ignore that. Now next, we're gonna separate each one of these layers into halftones. And to do that, we are going to go Image, Mode, Bitmap. This bitmap is going to be your key to making your halftones. All right, so our output is basically what this bitmap filter is going to tell our image to halftone into, I guess I would say. Basically, we need the output to match our input, at least for this process. And the method, we are going to choose halftone screens. Just think about the words I keep saying: halftone, halftone, halftone. Okay. All right, let's talk just briefly about frequency. So frequency is a number that is basically the frequency of dots per line inch. And it's basically the size of the dot. And I'll just say that a smaller frequency, you're going to get a much larger dot. And a higher frequency, you're going to get smaller but more tiny dots. If you make that dot too tiny, then the screen will not receive it, and you'll get a really blown out image that just doesn't work at all. The way that you can calculate your frequency is by taking your mesh count and dividing it by 5. And what that number will give you is actually the maximum, the highest frequency that you should use for your CMYK screen print. So in our class, we use a mesh count of 230. And if we divide that by 5, we get 46. So 46 is the highest that I'd like anyone in our class to choose as their frequency. But you can go as low as 5. And let's just try one and then the other to look at what the difference is in size. And halftones don't translate that well to computer screens, so this might look a little bit distorted, but it'll give you an idea. let's just click OK. All right, we've got a lot of little tiny dots. So let's zoom in a little bit. And you can see those dots, and once we zoom in, they're not so small. But that's just a general idea. Let's undo that, and let's try choosing a halftone a bit lower. Let's choose 5. Oh yeah, and now we've got some much larger dots, and this might look really posterized or really abstract to you, but when you get far enough away, you do start to get the idea of what the image is, and I wouldn't let this sort of distortion deter you from trying a lower frequency. At any rate, let's undo that. Let's go back. And you can choose any number in between, say 5 and 46. We could choose 30. You get kind of a nice place in between. And let's talk about angle. Haven't mentioned the angle yet. So if you've looked at any of the examples of the CMYK prints I passed around in class, I've asked you to take a closer look at them, and when you get really close and you look at those little patterns of dots, they fit together in this nice little grouping. I've heard them called like rosettes or florets, and the way that you get that effect is by varying the angle of each of the 4 layers, the C, M, Y, and K. A little visual example, it might be a little blurry here, but you can see that by choosing these kind of varied angles, you can get this really nice effect right here. So I would recommend following this angle pattern, though there are a lot of different angle patterns that will give you a similar effect. But for each of these layers, I'd like to follow that. So we're going to choose 15 as our angle for cyan. And when picking the shape, pick either round or ellipse. Diamond, line, square, cross, they're interesting. In my opinion, not that interesting. But for the sake of this assignment, choose round or ellipse. I have heard that ellipse can give a slightly more realistic effect, so let's choose that. All right, and there's our cyan. This looks pretty good. And let's go across and do all the rest of them. And all these settings they'll stay the same as you go through this process. All you need to do is change your angle. So our magenta angle is 75. Great. Our yellow, our angle is 0. And our black, the angle is 45. All right. Now, they are all bitmapped and are just about ready to print. Now, this is an important step that you need to take. Let's make every single one of these grayscale. Why? Well, the reason is a little silly, but our printer that we are using, the Cannon IPF90, does not like to print the bitmaps. And if you leave your your layer in bitmap instead of grayscale, the printer will print a giant black square instead of your nice half-toned image. It's a big waste of ink and there's nothing you can do with it. So please make your images grayscale before you print. Okay, now we've got all 4 of them. Let's just close that. And it'll clean up what we are looking at a little bit. All right, so let's print one of these. Now to print this, we're gonna go to File, Print. All right, so you're gonna click File and Print, and this print dialog window is gonna open up. Let's start in the top and we'll work all the way down. You're gonna need to choose the printer. I'm going to recommend choosing Cannon IPF670 system. Choose this one instead of the Cannon IPF670. I've had better luck with the system, and sometimes this one gets frozen and we can't have, our files can't seem to communicate with the printer. All right. So the sheets of Babs that you're going to buy, the Babs waterproof film, that's what you're going to print each of these CMYK layers on. And I've told you that the Babs waterproof film that you can purchase at the bookstore comes in two sizes, either 13 by 19 or 17 by 22. So our image is 8 by 11. Let me think about that. 8 by 11. We're just going to print each one of these on one full sheet of the 13 by 19 Babs waterproof film. So let's go ahead and press print settings. Okay, we get a new printer dialog window. Let's just leave presets alone. Copies 1. Now paper size, this is important. Open up the paper size dialog box and go down to manage custom sizes. I do this every single time I put something through the printer. And you're not gonna, this is what will probably all be grayed out the first time you try to do this. Click the plus button, it'll open up a new custom size, and then you'll be able to edit this to be whatever you want. So the width of my paper is going to be 13 and the height is going to be 19. And these borders you can change. You can make them 0. The printer dialog doesn't like it, but what can it do about it? It can't do anything about it. Okay. All right. Now let's click. So this is just going to stay untitled, but it has the correct size. That's all that matters. Let's open up this layout. And don't worry about layout. Let's go all the way down to main. All right. Media type. This is important. Make your media type Cannon coated paper. And we have been using this setting Cannon coated paper. It works fine with the Babs waterproof film, and the description or the idea of Cannon coated paper sounds pretty similar to what the Babs waterproof film is. I don't really change any of this stuff. Print quality high is probably going to help you, though it may not be completely necessary. I would avoid fast. All right, that's good. Let's go down here. Okay, so if you really enjoy using this printer and you maybe use a lot of digital images for your screen printing or for your photo lithography, you may consider buying a roll of waterproof film, which you can load into our printer and it works really wonderfully. But for the most part, you screen printers doing my CMYK assignment, you're not going to have a roll, you're going to have sheets that you buy from the bookstore. So if you have a sheet, choose manual, and that is about it. So let's click save, and this should update our preview. It's telling me my margins aren't big enough, but I don't care. All right, so this is what we're gonna load a sheet that is 13 by 19. We're gonna print our little 8 by 11 image 4 times, and yeah, that's about it. If I wanted to, I could probably take my 13 by 19. Yeah, I could technically probably chop this piece of Babs in half, and I might be able to squeeze you know, my black and my yellow per se onto this sheet of Babs and save myself a little paper. But I'll leave that up to you if you want to do that kind of stuff. Okay, so the next part of this video, I'm going to show you how to load the Babs into the our printer, our Cannon IPF670, and click print, and that will be that. We're going to do that 4 times, and then you can expose them on your screens and print them. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and load this sheet of Babs waterproof film into our printer. The Babs waterproof film has two sides. One has a little bit of stickiness. It almost sounds like you're rubbing a balloon when you rub your finger across it. The other side is very smooth, and it feels a lot like the acetate that we print on for our registration purposes. We always want the sticky side facing towards us when we load this into our printer. If you print on the wrong side, you will not be able to use the film. So let's go ahead and load this right into our printer. And the printer has a little guide, and there is a setting right there for 13 by 19. So let's go ahead and just load this right into the printer like so. And the dialog box here says press OK to feed the paper. So let's go ahead and press OK. And it's just going to grab onto it, and it's going to pull it, and it's going to try and straighten it out a little bit. And once it's done that, it is ready to print. So it's just grabbed it. And it's straightening it out. And it calculates how long our sheet of Babs is across. So it knows that it's 13 across, but we need to tell the printer how what the height of the paper is. Because right now it has no idea. For all it knows, this could be 100 feet long. So at this small dialog box right here, I'm going to say 1 and 9. I'm telling it that it's 19 inches high, and then I'm going to press OK. And it is ready to print. And there's a little light here that is next to our sheet, and that is what we want. If the light is next to the roll, we're going to want to switch that to the sheet, and you can do that by pressing the load button and specifying the sheet instead of the roll. But this is ready to go. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to send my the black layer of my CMYK print, that little ghost image. I'm going to send it right through this printer, and it'll probably print in about 10 seconds. All right, I'm going to go ahead and print. All right. And the computer is going to communicate with our printer. And let's take a look and see if this works. All right, when the film is finished printing, this little dialog box will say terminating. That is typical. And you're gonna have to wait a second before taking your transparency out. Wait until this dialog comes up, and you can push this lock will release, and you can pull your freshly printed film out. That is our C of our CMYK. And you're just gonna go ahead and repeat this process for every single one of your layers until you've got 4 printed transparencies like this. So as you might have seen in my last video, I was printing out these different films on our printer, on our waterproof film. And I printed one for each layer. Here's C, here's M, here is Y, and K. And after I print them, sometimes I'll just put a little note in Sharpie so that I know which one is black or which one's yellow, because they do look sort of similar. So that's a nice way to keep track of all of them. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to mix my inks. And typically for this project at Edinboro, I will mix all of these for you, and they'll just be sitting over at our inking mixing station. And so you can just grab them and print them right out of the jar. Usually this assignment doesn't take too long because I facilitate some of that stuff for you. So I'm going to go ahead and mix these inks. I'm going to do that with some measuring cups because I think it's better to be more accurate. I mean, it's not better, it's important. So let's be accurate. And the way that I want to mix these is I actually want to mix them with 70% transparent base, and I'm only going to use 30% of the inks. We want it pretty transparent. If you printed them with, 100% just the ink, it's going to be really, really saturated and bright and probably a little hard to look at. It might be kind of interesting, but it's not going to be very realistic. And I have found through doing a bunch of tests that 70% transparent base and 30% ink works the best. Some people use 40% transparent and 60% ink, but I prefer it my way. So that's how I'm going to mix it. So let me grab some transparent base and I'll start portioning them out. I usually will portion out all of the transparent base at once so that I just dirty one of my measuring cups at a time. And then I'll take some little ones and grab the inks and mix them in. So I've got my colors all mixed. I've got my screens all exposed. I've exposed these using the photo emulsion method of preparing a screen. And I've got a nice big screen here, so I was able to get 2 layers on each screen, which is just going to save me a little bit of time. And I'm ready to print. I know that this one is yellow and this is magenta. Whenever we print CMYK prints, we print yellow, magenta, cyan, and then black. So I'm going to start by printing my yellow. I've just got a couple of sheets of French paper here I'm going to print on. And I'm going to print onto a sheet of acetate as we typically do, just to see where the prints, where the image is going to fall. And then I'm going to use 3 little pieces of tape to mark the corners so my paper will be registered throughout the edition. Let's go ahead and print this. I typically like to take one of my sheets of paper and toss it underneath the acetate before I print onto the acetate. And I just left myself about an inch border. Okay, so let's go ahead and print on this. I'm just going to take my yellow here, and we'll just add a little reservoir of ink to the top. I really don't need much because I'm printing a pretty small edition. Turn the vacuum on, and I'll flood it first. Pretty clearly see where. So my registration is set up. I've got these tabs on the top and one on the side. Each of my sheets of paper should click right in there and be exactly the same every single print. So let's go ahead and print this yellow. That looks pretty good. Can't see very much right now, but as soon as I drop that magenta on, we're gonna get a lot more information. All right, next I'm gonna print my magenta layer. This is gonna be really similar to the yellow. I'm just gonna grab my magenta, 70% transparent, 30% magenta ink, and we'll drop a little reservoir at the top above our image. I've cleaned off the acetate, so that's ready for me to print on again. They're pretty close, so let's go ahead and print on the acetate. I think that's pretty close. So let's turn the vacuum on. I'll add my registration tab. And I'll print it. Alright. This is a really fun process to see kind of evolve throughout the layers, because you can see just adding that magenta, it's not that now we have yellow, magenta, but we have this great orange starting to happen throughout the whole print, and each layer just adds so much more visual information. So once I add the cyan, not only am I adding cyan, but I'm adding, when it mixes with the magenta, we're gonna get purple. When it mixes with the yellow, we're gonna get green. And when they all mix together, the three of them, we're gonna get brown. All right, so now I'm gonna go ahead and print the cyan, and I think you're gonna see a lot of colors appearing once I do that. Just mixing it up a little bit more. I'll take my registration copy with the lines drawn on it. So I'm gonna just add my registration and then I'll print this layer. With that added, we're just going to get so much more visual information. Usually once you add the cyan, it looks really photographic. It looks pretty much finished. And lastly, I'm going to add the black. And this layer is really going to bring the print together. It's going to add a lot more value, and it's going to make it a lot more like the original photograph that I took and used for this CMYK screen print. Thank you for watching. My name is Doug Eberhardt, and this was filmed at the Edinboro University printmaking studio. If you have any questions about this video, you can feel free to post them in the comment section, and hopefully I will get around to looking at them and addressing them at some point. And I just wanted to thank you again for watching.